One of the hardest things to do in this hobby is keep your fish tanks warm in cold weather, especially if you live in a region that has to deal with constant power outages from major snowstorms or ice storms or just heavy wind. So stick around and we'll go through different tips and tricks that you can do to keep those fish nice and toasty warm, or at the very least save them until you can get power back or warm your tanks up some other way. Now this first one might surprise you, but if you keep your tank darker, as in don't turn your lights on, your fish will be less active. Their natural basic instinct to say, hey, it's dark outside, I'm gonna stay sleepy, or just, not be as productive. The less active your fish are, the less oxygen they will consume, which in the long term will help keep your fish alive in colder weather as the water temperature slowly comes down. Now, going with that, you can actually cover your tanks with blankets if it's super cold, because it takes water a while to actually cool down and heat up. Anyone who lives along the coast or near a major body of water is going to know this. Anyone along the coastline, usually the water takes longer to cool down, so the air coming off the water is warmer. So this isn't the best tip for some of you with smaller fish, but anyone with larger tanks, covering it with a blanket will actually help you in the long run keep that heat in. Especially it's going to act as an insulator and keep that thermal heat in there. I have done this when heaters didn't come in, or if the heat died because we were out of power. I would literally be covering my tanks in blankets or taking blankets and covering the racks up. I have done this with a dog cage and turning it into a greenhouse. It works great. You can drape heavy plastic around a rack and then put blankets on top of that. You're going to have double the insulation layer there. And as I said before, colder fish are less active, thus they're moving slower, and that's going to help them conserve oxygen and keep more oxygen in your tanks. Second one, don't feed your fish. That's going to sound a little hurtful, but fish can go comfortably 5 to 7 days without any food. Why that is because we have set up small ecosystems in our tanks. There are microscopic organisms and other things our fish can munch on. So your fish can usually go 5 to 7 days. The most I have gone without feeding my fish is 10 days, and they were fine. I've not had super major issues. If you want more information on that, I did a whole collab video with a bunch of great fish keepers. I'll put a card for that at the end of this video if you want to check that out. Colder water actually holds oxygen better. When we heat our tanks up, we are basically deoxygenating the water. Anyone with bigger fish, like African cichlids that need to keep their water hotter, or discus or flower horn people out there, the hotter the water, you'll notice they have a lot more circulation, a lot more aeration to keep the water oxygenated. Those people that have never experienced that won't know that warmer water equals less oxygen and colder water equals more oxygen. Kind of like when ponds and lakes freeze over in the wintertime, those fish are still alive because they're not moving, kind of go into like a dormant state. And the water is so cold and the ice on top acts as a thermolation insulation layer that actually traps the heat in the further down you go and keeps your fish from dying, basically, because they're consuming less oxygen and there's more of it. If you're a person like me that just loves the cold to begin with and doesn't have to worry about power outages or anything, I will also link a video at the end for you that is all about the best cold water fish that you can have that don't require a heater at all and can actually go super low temperature. Speaking of temperature, now fish have a range of temperatures. If you look into a fish, you know there's a lot of fish, the range is like, okay, it can go from 68 to 78 degrees. Combine that with where it takes a while for your water to drop in temperature. As long as temperature changes are slow and incremental, your fish will adapt to it. Now, that is not saying that some of your more tropical fish don't need higher temperatures, but even our Amazon fish, if you look at some of the ambient and river temperatures in the Amazon, they get a lot colder than you'd think. I looked up one fish where its region is, and they get temperatures down in the upper 40 Fahrenheit. So it is possible that some of these fish can tolerate a much wider range than we think they can. So just keep that in mind when you're worried about and stressing over your fish when you lose power. If you notice your fish are gasping for air and you don't have power, one thing you can do is you can literally just stick your hand or spatula or something in there and just mix up that water. That's going to get some oxygen moving in there. It's going to break oxygen molecules up and get some more oxygen flowing in your tank. You can, if you're without power and your local fish store is say 20-15 minutes away, if they have power, you could, ask them or ask a friend or a relative if they have power, if they could just, babysit your fish for a little bit. If it's close enough and they're a good enough friend or relative, you could literally just go over there every couple days and just check on and make sure they're okay. Like I said, they don't need to be fed every day. So if you can put them somewhere, let them relax, chill a little bit, get used to the new environment, just put them, come back a few days later, feed them a little bit, check in on them, you're good to go. Because we really don't want to be disturbing our fish, especially when their natural state they're used to is disrupted. So your power goes out, there's no filtration, there's no aeration, there's no heat, the lights aren't on. Your fish are going to be like, whoa, what's going on? And it'll take them a little time to adapt. Think of it like when you add a new fish to your tank. You need to give them time to adapt to the new surroundings. That's why usually we say keep lights off, feed your current fish in like a corner, let those new fish get adapted. Same principle occurs with cold water when the power goes out, or if it's just blistering cold, you can't heat it up, or you're on an exterior wall, something like that. Feeding your fish less, like we mentioned earlier, will also cut down on their waste. As we all know, waste goes down, it breaks down, creates ammonia, and all these other bad things for our fish. You don't want to spike and have that worry about. Now, some people, if their power has gone out and they have, say, a gas-fired hot water heater that doesn't go out, what they will do, put hot water in a bucket. By hot, I mean like 78 degrees, and they'll just slowly drip it into their tank, so it's kind of keeping the water regulated without overstimulating the fish and freaking them out even more. But the best piece of advice I can give you, if your power goes out or you've got blistering cold, cover the tanks with blankets, cover them with plastic, cover them with anything, and then put another something on top. You got a tarp, put a tarp over it, then put a blanket on top of the tarp, and then leave it alone. Don't touch the tank. Leave it in a nice closed off little bubble, because the more you play around with that tank, the more stressed your fish will get. Then that causes all the problems. Leave it alone once you have your plan in place. You don't want to be taking it and disturbing those fish more than you have to. So now you'll be more prepared if the power goes out and your fish tanks have no heaters in them. You'll know exactly what you can do. You'll have your plan in place. You won't have to freak out and stress out that your fish are going to die. You now have all the information that you need to successfully keep your fish alive in a high stressful situation like a power outage or a blizzard or an ice storm or anything relating to your cold water in your fish tanks. I will make sure to link both those other videos for you here. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to leave a like, hit the sub button if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below there so I know what you do when the cold weather strikes and you lose power. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later.